All right, hello, welcome. My name is Biotic Shark. Thank you so much for tuning in. This video is going to be a requested video. Quite a while back actually, I made an emote tutorial for those interested in making emotes or just kind of wondering how that process works, whether it's for Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, whatever streaming platform that you're making them for. However, on that video, which is doing quite well, so I do appreciate the love in the comments on that, and I will provide a link to the first video in the description down below if you haven't seen the first video. But one of the top comments on that video basically asked if I could make a more in-depth walkthrough for those who already have access to a drawing software such as Photoshop, Clip Studio Paint, Paint Tool SAI, whatever it is that you have access to, and kind of just breaking down my process a little bit more for, I don't know, aspiring emo artists or, what have you. So I will let you know. First off, we're gonna dive right in. However, quick disclaimer, my first emote tutorial was, I kind of typed everything I was gonna say out and then read it and narrated over it. So the narration is way cleaner and more scripted and professional. However, this tutorial, I'm literally making kind of on a whim, last minute, excuse me, to help those people out. So it won't be as professional sounding. So there's gonna be some ums and some coughing and little things like that. So just wanted to get that out of the way, and I do apologize ahead of time for that. Okay, so we are going to get into it. I just did this particular emote for a client today, actually earlier today, and I thought it would be a great example to use for this video. So over here to the right, by the way, this tutorial is going to be more specific for Photoshop. It will be applicable to other softwares because chances are, if you're using a drawing software, it has a layer system like over here. So don't try and get too into like, oh, well, my software looks different. What do I do? Don't freak out. Just kind of listen to my process and then you can apply it to your specific drawing software. Okay. So over here, I have my layers, and what I'm gonna kind of do is break down my layers, how I set them up, and then once I go over all the layers, I'll do a separate demonstration for you as well, okay? So, the only layer that it's not showing is a sketching layer, because once I've, done the sketching layer, it's just not necessary. So I would do a sketch and then I would make a line art layer. And actually, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna label all these layers. So there's my line art layer, there's my lighting layer, there's my shading layer, and there's my, here we go. This is my coloring layer. And that's it. There are artists out there who like to use a bazillion layers. That's totally fine if that's your thing. My brain that would be so overwhelming. So I do try and kind of keep it pretty simple, and I do keep it to 4 to 5 or 4 to 6 layers. In this case, obviously there's only 4. Okay, so I'm gonna take away these layers right here. So this is just the line art layer, right? And you can see how kind of clean it is for the most part. And then after the line art layer, I would obviously add the coloring, which you see here. And then after that, I would do the shading. And then I would add the lighting. And just to show you how important the shading and lighting is, do you see how kind of flat the emote is when it's just line and color? When you add shading and lighting, it gives the character in the emote, regardless of what the character or animal is, it just gives it more form. It gives it more kind of like a slight 3D aspect to it. And the character just looks a little bit nicer to the eye and a little bit more believable. Okay, let me make sure I'm actually recording. Okay, I am. Okay, and what I'm gonna actually do is I'm gonna open up a demonstration. So let's say I'm just starting on an emote, right? I open it up, File, New. And you want to make sure your background is set to transparent. That's extremely important. Emotes have to have a transparent background, okay? I do go over this in my first tutorial, so like I said, refer to that if you need to. I always set my resolution to 300. So it's nice, crisp, and clean. And I personally like to start off with a 500 by 500 pixels canvas. And I like to work with RGB color as well. So here we go. We have a blank slate, just like this. And what I'll kind of do to start off with the sketch, and if I have any reference photos to help me out, I'll usually kind of like open them up and then just have them floating right here next to where I'm working on, just to kind of help me out. Okay, so I got an emote commission. I'm gonna start the sketch, right? So I go here and I usually set this to like gray, like middle gray or like a darker gray. And then, you know, I'll get my paintbrush. You can set it to whatever size. I usually typically draw with like a 10 to 15 pixel paintbrush. And then go to opacity, which basically just makes it, so like this is 100 opacity, right? Oh, I'm sorry. So this is 100 opacity, right? And I'm actually having to draw this with my mouse because my tablet's not connecting when I record. And then if I reduce that opacity to 50%, it's kind of like, and every stroke will get darker, but it's kind of more see-through, right? So does that make sense? So when I'm sketching to kind of simulate like if I were sketching in real life with a pencil, I'll set that opacity to about 50%. And then I'll kind of, you know, again, I'm sketching with my mouse. I don't work with my mouse, but let's say I'm drawing a circle, right? I just sketched a really shitty circle. And then I would open up a new layer. This is my sketching layer. I'm gonna make a new layer over here, whatever your drawing software, however that works. And this is now my line art layer. I'm gonna set this to black, or you don't have to line with black, but for this case, I'm going to be lining with black. I usually do line with black. Now I'm gonna set my opacity back to 100% because we don't want that sketchy pencil look anymore, right? So, and then I would like trace my sketch to where I wanted it to look like, right? Obviously this is terrible and I really wish that my tablet would connect. I don't know why it's not. It's being silly. But yeah, and then I would go in, right? Okay, now, like here's my nice little great line art, right? This is gonna make a fantastic emote. And then I would delete the sketch layer, obviously, because I have the line art. I don't need it anymore. I'm gonna make a new layer and then put that layer below the line art layer, okay? And that's so everything we draw, so like let's say this circle is going to be yellow underneath. Let me make my paintbrush a little bigger here. Everything I paint stays under that layer. That's why we want this to be under the layer. That way it doesn't mess with our line art, right? So yeah, let's say we're gonna color this. And if you get outside the lines, what you can do is you can always, you know, Control Z it or undo your action. Or later on, I just kind of like to be as careful as I can. And if I notice that I went outside the lines at all, I'll just kind of get the eraser tool and just lightly trim off up to the, lightly trim off as much as I need to, right? And then there we go. So we got our line, we got our color, and then we got, I'll make another layer, and this will be on top of the color layer, but still underneath the line art layer, right? From here on out, whenever I'm making a new layer, everything's gonna be under the line art layer, okay? The line art layer is always gonna be at the very, very top. Unless you're putting something on top of the line art, which I don't know why you would, but. Okay, so we got the line, we got the color. Now we wanna do the shading, right? So what I like to do, if you're using Photoshop like me, in this layer window, you'll see this little thing over here that's set to normal. If you click it, it gives you options. For shading, I set this to multiply. And what I do is I go over here and I set it to probably mid to light range gray, right? And what happens is it kind of just naturally makes this awesome shading. And just, I'm gonna go back to the coloring layer and just kind of to demonstrate. Let's say if this circle was blue, right? I'm gonna make a little blue marking right here. We're back to the multiply shading layer. See, it kind of just naturally makes, it kind of conforms to whatever color you put it on top of, since it's kind of like in a multiply format. So anyway, let's say, okay, we got the shading, but I want the shading to look a little bit more softer, you know, like how shadows in real life, they're not really hard shadows. Unless that's your art style, that's totally fine. Me particularly, I like shadows to be a little bit more softer and a little bit have that kind of have that blur look to it, right? Just like a normal shadow would. So what I'll do is I'll go to my smudge tool right here, and my smudge tool brush is like a soft airbrush, okay? And then I'll go over here, and then my strength is set to 55% on my smudge tool. And I'll just kind of smudge it out. And this kind of just softens the shadow, right? Which is what you kind of see over here. See how soft the shadows are on her? Okay. Okay, cool, great. We got our lighting, right? So we're gonna make, yes, you guessed it, another layer. Except this time, the shading is set to multiply, right? For the lighting layer, we're gonna set it to overlay. Now there are other options like soft light, hard light, vivid light. You can play around with those if you're in Photoshop and see if you like any of those better, but I personally recommend just sticking with overlay. Okay? And feel free to label your layers too, so you can keep better track of them. So this is our lighting layer now, right? So I usually kind of like to set the gray value to a little bit higher, not too high. We don't want it like super blinding. So just like a smidgen higher than what we had our grayscale value with the shading, okay? And similar like how to multiply, just kind of lights. See, it kind of just, and then over here, it just makes a lighter blue. And over here, it just makes a lighter yellow. So I'll usually have a shading and a lighting, right? With the lighting, I can't really, this is like a totally separate tutorial on how to properly shade and light things. But if you can see right here, I'll kind of just imagine a light source, right? So imagine over here is the light source. So, or you can have two light sources, and actually two light sources are a little bit better than having one. So if you see right here, I'm gonna zoom in. See how the light's coming from the right side, right? Which is why the light's only on the right side of the fingers right here. But then right here, you see light over there, which it's also shaded. But what this is it's a secondary light source, and that just kind of gives it more of a, again, like what I was saying with earlier, it just gives it more form. So play around with where you want to put your lighting and where you want to put your shading on your emotes and your characters. And honestly, just go with your gut, go with your intuition. If it doesn't look right, if it looks off to you, erase it and try putting the lighting and shading somewhere else, okay? Try not to overthink it, but the easiest way is just to imagine, okay, where do I want the light source to be coming from? And do I want more than one light source, right? Let's see. Oh yeah, okay, so this little effect right here. So if I take away my color, shading, and lighting, oh, I'm sorry. If I take my shading and lighting and just have my lighting and color, you'll see right here in the eyes, it has like this nice little fading effect. If you're wondering how I did that, all I did was I just colored it brown right here. And then there's this in Photoshop and probably other drawing softwares, there's this thing called the dodge tool. And if you click that, you basically, it kind of just gives like it just kind of naturally lightens that up. And you can use this as a way to make your lighting effect too. The only problem is that the more you put on it, the more white it becomes. And it kind of just doesn't look as soft, and it just doesn't look as good. You see kind of how violent that lighting is. So just kind of use that sparingly, but it's cool to kind of give like a nice little fade effects on certain areas, right? And let me zoom out real quick. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I need to go over. Look at the difference. This is what it looks like when you use a tablet. This is what it looks like when you use a mouse. So I did get a couple of comments saying, do you use a mouse or a tablet? And I also got people thinking I do draw with a mouse. Listen, peeps, if I tried drawing with a freaking mouse, like, let me show you. Let me try drawing this. Let me try drawing this shit with a mouse. I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to cuss on YouTube, but like, like, do you see? Do you see how much harder that is? Do you see how silly that looks? It's just, it's hard, okay? I don't recommend it. So if you don't have a drawing tablet, get one. They have, if you're poor, you can get a cheap drawing tablet. If you're a little bit more blessed, then you can invest in yourself. So like, there's all kinds of tablets. Just do your research and read reviews and get which ones you think are great. I'm trying to think before I end the video if there's anything anyone else asked me about. I don't think so. Let me see. Let me go through some of my emotes. I did go over this in my first tutorial as well, again. But I'm gonna show this and demonstrate this really quickly. If you'll notice from what you see on my little thumbnails of my emote library that I've accrued over the years, right? There's one similarity between all of them. Do you notice? And it's that they're all super cropped. I can't tell you how many commissions or clients I get when they're telling me what they want. They give me like this whole outfit description and everything. And I'm like, look, listen, here's the thing. I don't need to know all that, because when you're making an emote, it's the most you're showing is the shoulders, right? Like, look here. All you're seeing is the shoulders right here, right? Like with this heart one right here, literally, like, you can't even see her body. You can't even, because emotes, they're so tiny. They're so tiny that's what makes emotes. You want them to look good at their smallest size. Because look, oh wow, this is a great emote. But like, you have to test it. You know, like, okay, when I'm sizing down, oh, that's what I was gonna go over. I'm so sorry how disorganized this video is. Okay, let's say, okay, great. I have finished my emote. This looks great. I'm happy with it. I'm ready to give it to the client. Well, before we can give it to the client, what we have to do is we have to save it properly, right? Well, it already has a transparent background. Now, here's the thing. Most streaming, I think all of them require them to be PNG. So what I'll do is I'll go to, well, first what I like to do is I'll make sure I have the PSD file separate in case I ever need to go back and edit it. And what I'll do is I'll merge all the layers into one layer over here. And I'll go to Image, Adjustments, Brightness and Contrast. And I'll usually kind of up the contrast just a little bit. And you can see how much richer the colors get. And you just want to up that slightly. You don't want to overdo it too much. Because when you have too much contrast, that's a bit much. And when you don't have enough contrast, it's kind of dull, right? So you do want it to kind of have like that rich contrast to it. So I'll usually up it by 10 to 20. And you can just kind of tell just like a slight difference. And then I'll right click my layer, my one layer, and convert to smart objects. This is debatable, but I found it to help with the pixelation just a little bit, not really, but just enough to where like I personally prefer to use it. And then I'll go to image size. Let's say we're making an emote for Twitch. So the first one we want to make is 112 by 112, right? Okay, this is our 112 by 112. File, save, name it whatever you want, save that. And then you make it, okay, next size we need is 56 by 56. Okay, and then we save that as a file. And then okay, the last one we need is 28 by 28. And this is like our actual emote size. Now, because I'm recording, this is gonna look horrible because this video is already losing quality by being recorded on OBS, and then it's probably gonna lose even more quality when it's rendered and processed as a YouTube video. So this is a terrible example, so don't go by how blurry and crazy this probably looks from y'all's end. But yeah, basically, and that would have its own save file as well. And then you would send all of those files to your client because they're gonna need all of those files to submit them to, for in this example, Twitch, right? But yeah, oh yeah, and then when you close out, it's gonna ask you, oh, do you wanna save these changes? Always click no when you're done because you don't want to lose your original PSD file. Because that PSD file is what kept all your layer information all separately, and it allows you to edit things if your client wants a change, right? So yeah, try not to accidentally click yes, because it's like, muscle memory habit. But yeah, guys, I know that this was kind of super messy and kind of all over the place. I hope I explained kind of at least a little bit more about how my process works. And yes, please let me know if you have any questions. I will get to them and I will respond to them. You can also email me any questions you have as well, okay? I hope you guys have a lovely, lovely day. And I hope you guys are good. So yeah, I will leave y'all to it. I don't need to tell you to subscribe and comment and like or anything like that because I literally just don't care. I'm not trying to make a living on YouTube, so just yeah, any comments or anyone who needs help, please come my way and I will do my best to help you. Okay, bye.